Subscribe to Teckoh on YouTube or you will forever be a bot at Fortnite.
What is up, boys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking all about keybinds and the best updated binds I recommend you start using for Chapter 2, Season 6, and future seasons. If you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this in the future. One more thing as well, guys, I'm starting to stream on Twitch a lot more often, so if you want to check that out and join in, that'd be awesome. I'm trying to do a bunch of cool stuff like Zone Wars and Arena with viewers, maybe hosting some scrims and stuff like that in the future, so if you're interested, be sure to hop in. The link to that is going to be near the top of the description if you want to go and check it out. But with that said, boys, and without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so to preface this video, I want to start off by saying a lot of your keybinds are really just going to come down to your own preference, and I can only really give you so much in video format since I have limited information on each individual. For example, some of you guys might have smaller hands, different types of keyboards and mice, maybe some of you don't like mouse buttons for building and other stuff like that, so I just want to let you guys know that while I do want to give you guys the best keybinds for all types of players, you might also want to take these keybinds and then make certain adjustments to them to kind of fit the way you personally like to play. But with that said, the first thing we're going to be discussing are your building and editing binds, as those are typically going to be priority when you're trying to develop a set of keybinds. For building and editing, what I recommend doing is using your two mouse side buttons, assuming your mouse has them, and assign those to your wall and stairs, since those are going to be the binds you're most likely going to press the most in fights. For most players, side mouse buttons are the easiest buttons to access and have a really quick response time, which is why setting them to wall and stair is super effective. After that, I recommend just setting your floor and cone to buttons that are close to your movement binds on your keyboard. Personally, I recommend Q, V, or F for these, so you can save E for editing, which we're going to discuss later. But really, it's up to whatever feels best for you. Keep in mind that if you do go ahead and set your floor and cone to thumb binds, aka C, V, or B, and actually press them with your thumb, it'll allow you to have full movement control, basically the ability to press W, A, S, and D, and control your movement in like 360 degrees. And that can obviously be really helpful as well. After that, you can set your trap bind to really any button you like, since this bind really isn't a priority since it's not used super often. You can really just put it on whatever feels best for you. Overall, the building binds I recommend for most of you guys are going to be the following: side mouse button for wall, F or V for floor, side mouse button for ramp, Q for cone, and tab for trap. Feel free to mess around with these a bit, but from experience, these tend to be the best keybinds for most players to get a mix between insane mechanics, movement control, and just general comfort. After your building binds are set, next up comes editing, and editing is really a lot more simple. Really, for editing, you're just going to want to use a bind close to your movement binds and then decide which setting to use. For your bind, I almost always recommend using E since it's super close to WASD and one of the easiest buttons to press. However, you can also use buttons like F, G, or even V depending on which one is most comfortable and allows you to edit fast. Once again, this is really just going to come down to personal preference more than anything. And when it comes to your actual edit setting, once again, it's just preference, guys. You can use a normal single bind setup if you're comfortable with it and like having full control over your edits, confirm edit on release if your priority is speed, or even double binds if you like that, but I find a classic setup or confirm on release to be best for most players. What I personally do, if you're curious, is pretty basic. I use E to edit, which is my main recommended bind, and then I personally just use the normal method of pressing E to open my edit menu, selecting tiles, and then E to confirm again. Basically, I don't have confirm on release or double binds, I just use the normal way to do it. I've tried confirm edit on release in the past, but honestly, I just prefer the usual way of editing, so that's the way I do it. Once again though, this is not me telling you to do it a certain way, just do it the way you prefer, but that's just the way I do it. Moving on from building and editing though, the rest of your keybinds are honestly going to be fairly simple to set up. In terms of weapon slots, most players are going to opt for just using the number keys, with the number 1 to take out their pickaxe, 2 for the first weapon, 3 for the second weapon, so on and so on. If you do have extra buttons that are fairly close to WASD, another thing you might want to consider though is using those extra buttons for your last few weapon slots, since numbers 5 and 6 can be hard to reach for a lot of players. What I personally recommend is setting your numbers 1 through 4 to your pickaxe and your first 3 item slots, and then setting 2 keyboard buttons to your final 2 slots to make those easier to reach. But if you don't find any issue reaching 5 and 6, then of course it's fine to just use the number keys for all your weapon slots. Apart from building, editing, and weapon slots, most players are going to have pretty standard binds. Most of us are going to use WASD to move around, sprint by default will usually stay on, it's all really pretty basic. One other tip I have is to use your middle mouse button, aka basically basically pressing your scroll wheel to reload, since it's really easy to reach, but usually isn't as comfortable as the side buttons, meaning it isn't as viable for building or editing. By the way, what I mean by middle mouse button is basically taking your scroll wheel and actually pressing it, not like flicking it up or down, but just like pressing it down. I know that some mice don't allow you to do it, but I think most should, so this should be relevant for most of you guys. In my opinion, it's pretty much the perfect bind for reload, since it doesn't require insane speed or precision, but it's also really easy to reach, so it's pretty convenient. As well as that, boys, another thing that I recommend for all keyboard and mouse players is to use scroll wheel reset. Most players should know of scroll wheel reset by now, but in case you don't know, it basically allows you to fully reset any build by simply flicking your scroll wheel up or down, as opposed to opening the menu, pressing a reset bind, and then confirming it. Scroll wheel reset is pretty easy to set up, but a lot of players seem to do it wrong for some reason. To set it up, just do the following. Head into your keybinds and scroll down until you're in the little editing area. From there, go to both the building edit bind and the reset building edit bind, and then set both of those to either up or down with your scroll wheel. Make sure that you're setting both of them to the same direction, either both up or both down. Once you've done that, you should be all good, and simply flicking your scroll wheel in the direction you set should allow you to instantly reset any build. And finally, guys, for the other binds like vehicle controls, picking up players, and all that stuff, you can really just do whichever binds you want, as long as they don't interfere with other binds you may be using, since the last thing you're going to want to do is try to edit a wall but instead start shaking someone down, and that's coming from somebody who may or may not have had that happen at least a few too many times. You'll also want to set your map and inventory to fairly comfortable binds, since you're going to be using those a lot in game. Personally, I use X for inventory, which I just press with my index finger, and M for map, which I press with my thumb. X is a fairly simple bind and works pretty well, and while M is fairly far away, I really just don't find it difficult to hit, so it's pretty comfortable for me anyway. With that said though, other than the binds I've already mentioned, everything should be pretty self-explanatory and easy to set up. You can really just use whichever binds you have remaining for any other actions you may have. I'm pretty sure I covered all the major binds in this video, and hopefully it gives you some good insight into what you might want to try using. And if you guys are curious at all about my own keybinds, I'll quickly scroll through my keybinds here on screen if you want to pause and take note of any of them. My binds don't follow every single rule in this video to a T, but they're still fairly optimal, and I'm pretty good with them since I've used them for such a long time. I do get a lot of questions about my own binds, so I figured this video would be a good chance to clear it all up. If you have any other questions though about keybinds, feel free to join my Discord server, which is going to be linked down below, and myself or another member can try to answer any questions you have. It's a really good community, so definitely consider checking out the server if you're interested. Overall, guys, hopefully this video helps you out to find the best keybinds for a keyboard and mouse. Just try to play around with them a bit, see what you personally prefer, while also trying to follow some of the advice I gave in this video. It's really ultimately going to come down to what you prefer, and don't be afraid to kind of experiment with your binds if you feel like something less conventional might suit you better as a player. Just keep in mind that everybody's different as a player, and I tried to give you the best sort of keybinds for everybody, but once again, everybody's different and you might prefer something else. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing if you want to see more content just like this in the future. As well as that, guys, if you want to go an extra step to help support me, it would mean a lot if you could go ahead and use code Teckoh in your Fortnite item shop. It's completely free for you guys, and it really does help me more than you think it does. With that said though, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.